parents are telling you that your clothes don't belong to you, that they own your clothes. Then
Yeah,
when
I'm
you
muting.
say, okay, I guess I won't wear those clothes then because they don't belong to me, they get mad at you? No, OP.
Bro, what
you
is
get
this?
0
Why are
out
you
of
doing?
5 buttholes. To be honest, your parents had that coming to them. That punishment backfired hilariously. I honestly want to give you like negative butthole points because not only did you not do anything buttholey here, but on top of that, you also grew up and became more mature. So good job, OP. Am I the butthole for telling my mom's new husband that she has kids? When I was 15, my mom left the family for a long time. No one knew where she was or even if she was okay. Eventually, it was discovered that she was just too overwhelmed and loved to handle herself. My brothers and I were raised by our uncle and my dad from that point on.
What am I supposed to
But
do?
it was hard. I became like my brother's mom and had to grow up quicker than I probably should have. I got into therapy and
Why can't I shoot, bro? What's the point of having the dang sniper if I can't shoot?
my mom on Facebook. It was by pure mistake because I reconnected with some other maternal family members that I guess are friends with her. She had the same first name and looks pretty much the same, just a different last name. The more I looked at her page, however, I saw that she had gotten remarried not long after she left my dad and had basically started a new family. She has kids ranging in age from 2 to 10 years old. My husband told me to leave it alone, but I was so angry I just couldn't handle it. So I ended up finding out her husband's Facebook and messaged him, saying that his wife had 5 other kids that she had abandoned. You know that? My mom ended up messaging me, pissed, saying I made her husband mad because he didn't know me. To me, that's not my problem. You can't just run off and neglect responsibilities. However, my brothers and husband think I was the butthole. So, am I the butthole? No, OP. You get 0 out of 5 buttholes on so many levels. And Gatita Monster down in the...
Look at Nini's tacky village. I know, it's so trashy.
Trashy? I'll show you the trashy.
Nini just attacked my village.
I'll show you what tacky is, Christina.
I do not have YouTube Premium, so don't judge me, please.
Brings up a really good point. Not the butthole. This man isn't nothing to you. He's your stepfather. You have a right to be acknowledged by your stepfather and siblings. Your mother cannot erase you, no matter how much she may want to, in order to avoid dealing with her own enormity. Since she can't be trusted to do so, you had every right to do it yourself. Your mother isn't a colleague or a casual acquaintance with strict rules of civility and boundaries that demand observance. Your mother committed
I'm gonna make him angry
betrayal of her duties
by
to
knocking
you
them
and
all
inflicted
down.
grave wounds as a result. She treated you as though you're nothing. You're not nothing. You're valuable and did not deserve to be abandoned. By announcing your presence in the world to her husband, letting her know you're still here in the only way that would make her listen. She can't ignore that anymore, and that's a good thing in my life. Am I the
I made him mad. I know I made him
mad.
mad.
After he refused to look for a lost dog. For starters, I'm a 35-year-old nurse, and I've been extremely busy the past 3 months. Writing this post is a privilege, and I'm having to do this in bits and pieces. I
cannot run away because it's hard because it's a built in the way.
son as well. When I'm not working, I take care of my children. In January 2019, my son suddenly developed a strong desire to have a dog. He begged and begged for a puppy from my husband, who's 35. I protested against that because I just found out that I was pregnant. Jesus. My husband said that we should let our son have a puppy to teach him responsibility and that he would have some practice to take care of his baby son. He also promised that he would help our son take care of the dog. I was absolutely unconvinced, but I had to give in eventually because my husband had already agreed and I didn't want to cause further fights. 5 days ago, my son had accidentally left the back door of the house open and the dog ran away. These 5 days were also some of the busiest, most grueling days of my work, and I had to take up night shifts because a colleague had fallen sick. Our son he refused to help him and said
They're really bad at
it's his
aiming.
responsibility to care for the dog and that he has to do something about it himself. My husband has the privilege of working from home. He works at a law firm. He works for maybe 3 to 4 hours a day and plays Xbox the entire time. He literally has no bad pressures. 5 days ago, our
Bro, I cannot do anything because he's spamming a dang AR at me. Bro, what is this, bro? Every time when I spawn in, can't do anything, bro. Oh my gosh. I'm about to report these people.
After coming home at night, the first thing I did was unplug the Xbox console and controller and throw it in the trash can. This morning, we were going to my husband broke the Xbox in the living room. I told him that I threw it away because he was so into it that he couldn't help but stress. When I came back from work, he told me he found his Xbox in the trash and cigar can. Now he's being incredibly snarky, giving me the because his controller isn't working. He also hasn't taken me. My best friend called and said my reaction.
Well, I'm gonna report him, but I can't if I keep dying.
Every neighbor of ours, ads and posters on several platforms and websites.
Bro, I cannot do anything. Bro, I literally cannot do anything.
However, my son is still wary of his father and unlike his parents for a long time.
Oh my gosh. I'm just about to report these guys. It literally did not let me shoot. What is this game? I can't think. Bro, what are y'all doing? I need to stop. You're actually really bad. Y'all don't know it. Cause y'all keep spawn killing me. Good people don't spawn kill. And they don't spam miniguns either. See, look at those spam miniguns, like spamming ARs, while I literally only have pump.
She had soft cotton clothes, her bowel movements were normal, and she was using new products on her. This left only one option. Her diapers weren't being changed frequently. I was away from home for 5 days. I asked my husband how many times to change her diapers. A baby her age needs changed at least once every 3 hours. My husband outright said he was changing them every 7 hours or so for those 5 days because he didn't think he could change as much because she was now 6 months old. He had raised his son.
Look at these trash kids. They have to spam me, bro, in order to get killed. Look at them. I'm recording this too, so. And there's actually somebody. There's some people watching, so now they know that you're trash. Now there's more people that know that you're trash, and I'm not blurring out your names either. See, look at him.
He was basically ignoring his 7 hours just so he could games instead. To be honest, OP, it doesn't sound like you have 2 games now. It sounds like you have 3. So my final assessment is OP gets one of the 5 buttholes because, yeah, right away the Xbox was a little bit immature. What OP should have done is just have a normal adult conversation with him. But as for the husband, this is an easy 5 out of 5 buttholes. Am I the one for taking a dump? My girlfriend was in terror. This sounds ridiculous, and I immediately unposted it. But my girlfriend is sincerely mad. It's making me out to be a butthole. So I went to bed last night with something. Without going into much detail.
Bro, see, look at
When I
this.
woke up, Peter finally called, and she wasn't ready to be put on hold. I got up and screaming in the living room. I quickly ran there to see what was going on.
Then tell me I'll come over here just to help me stop you guys. You guys keep spawn killing. And they keep double teaming. And spraying. They're literally not good, and I need help with them because there's 2 of them. and one of me, and they're both spraying.
She was scared. The dog was literally halfway out, so I just locked herself in the bedroom. After it was all done, roughly 15 minutes, I came out and relocated the spiders outside. She was in the room. I looked everywhere for her and she answered really angry, talking about how sucky and useless I am. Turns out she packed a bag and left to stay with her parents. WTF. She literally had to walk past these dangerous fucking creatures. I apologize, but she's still not having it. And even her mother has chipped in her 2 cents about how pathetic we were by it. I feel like this is by the butthole. She's pretty much dropped in, but she's broken up with me. I guess Miles would be the same way, but everyone down in the comments is generally
Bro, guys, chat, do y'all see this? Chat, do y'all see this?
About 7 months ago,
Actually.
Am
Am I the only one that's like seeing this right now? Trash kids trying to act like they're good.
And they could list her on their website. Somebody claimed her I could adopt her. So that's exactly what happened. My dog now has shiny fur. She's polite and she has lots of tricks. I have depression and anxiety, and she's my support animal. She's honestly the light of my life. Last month
Bro, oh my god, bro, all the time. I've not gotten to learn to die one time without getting sprayed.
I thought she was trying to scam me since she lived across the country, but when I looked into her, I found her Instagram pictures and videos. My dog has very unique markings, so it was unmistakably the same dog as the one in her pictures. My dog is a show champion and has a lot of trainings.
Get killed, boy.
Cared for, well trained, and well loved.
Nope.
She said her house caught fire last year and she lost everything, including my dog who ran away. Nobody knows how she was.
Bro, I can't even do this because it. Okay. At least I got a teammate now.
My dog. She even had a video of my dog as
Bro, I cannot flip my gun. What is it? I can't even flip my build. That's how bad it got, bro. Got her for 220.
She's 5, and I was sorry to hear about her circumstances, but I couldn't give up on the beloved girl. She's my support animal, so
you got it, sir. Yeah, you did.
I offered to send her pictures regularly, but she turned really nasty. I got tons of hateful messages from people I don't even know. I had panic attacks whenever I got notifications because her friends acted like it's my fault. I didn't choose for this special dog to change my life so much any more than she chose for my dog to get lost. I ultimately blocked her because she wouldn't leave me alone since she was the shelter for the whole
Bro, he always spams with something.
I've adopted her and she's mine.
Fine, I'll spam.
I know she loves my dog.
Alright, bet. Since he wants to keep spamming. Hey, cover me while I get a minigun.
I could clone my dog and give this chick
Thank you.
Right to anyways. I'm gonna be straight with you. It was a little bit difficult to read this because I got so angry reading it. This post is just paragraph after paragraph of me.
Hey, cover me.
No, you're not legally in the right. It's her
Thank you.
dog. You're basically stealing it from her. And you're definitely not the right. Someone at the dog.
I was at 50J, please don't call me actually.
The fact that you're not giving this dog back is honestly disgusting. Think about it like it was a child. A woman gives birth to a child, raises the child very well. The house is on fire, the kid runs away. Some random person finds the kid and is like, oh, I'll care for you, sweetie. And takes him to the cops, and the cops don't know who the kid is. And like, yeah, I can understand why you get attached to the kid, but as
oh, frick, sorry, wrong person.
found that kid, you would have no claim to it whatsoever. And the same is definitely true for dogs, so I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of ranting here. OP, you get 5 out of 5 buttholes, maybe 6 out of 5 buttholes. That was r/win-butthole, and if you like my content, then hit that subscribe button.
Bro, why did it take so long for the thing to load up?
Welcome to r/malicious compliance.
Where is your drum gun?
He was a nice guy and he would often have his friends over. I didn't mind it at all because I just moved to the area and needed new friends anyways. Our landlady though, she was a nightmare. She was this small, grumpy lady who would complain over the smallest things. She doesn't live with us, but tries to control everything. The color of our sheets, the scent of candles that we light, where we put our stuff, etc. Needless to say, we hated her.
Bro, I cannot build. It's not let it keeps switching it and I'm not even switching it.
Friends and family stay over once in a while because whatever we consume more of, we don't fill ourselves anyways. My sister visits me once a month for one night, just whenever she's in town. One night, my landlord got out and got so mad.
Bro, what? Why did my pump just only do 33 damage?
Cannot spend the night at her property. The only reason she does this is because she feels if a guest would stay at night, they should have to pay the full month.
Bro.
But cue malicious compliance. When one of my German roommate's friends was laid off from his main job, he was left homeless for a grave shift part-time job. He asked if he could stay with us for about a week or two. I told him I didn't mind, but my landlady might. They told me no. And she was fuming when she found out, which happened the day after he decided to stay with us because she checks on us unannounced every other day and has security cameras outside our door. She threatened to call the cops on us again, and all my roommate said was, but you told us explicitly no one.
Bro, why are you killing me, bro?
He's never here at night because he's broken, so there's nothing broken here. She had nothing to say and left. We could hear her screaming from inside her car that was parked right outside. Then, down the comments, we had this bizarre contribution from Bailey the Nerd. Man, I know what you mean about crazy landladies. My first landlady was a reverend. She wasn't. Who asked me if I was into Satanism before I moved in. That should have been a red flag, but rent wasn't normally that cheap where I was living. Here are some tidbits about my time with her. 1, she was extremely racist. Didn't like Asians, Mexicans, or blacks. She was herself black. 2, she accused me of trying to make her son's plane crash with voodoo because I was stupid enough to ask her who was the person in the picture nailed up outside my bedroom. 3, she did a 2-hour sermon in her living room every day. This was the only time it was safe to leave your room, as she wouldn't stop for anything, but would
bro, what are you doing? I'm leaving. Y'all trash.
She accused me of Satanist, feng shui, Buddha stuff on night 1 because of how I arranged my groceries in the pantry. Haha, fun times. I hope never to see Mad Margaret ever again.
Every time I actually join one of these parties or something, everybody has to be trash on it because everyone has to either spam or like double team or something.
In the perfect spot, which opens a gate to hell and summons a demon into our mortal realm. Our next Reddit post is from Smackgates. In 2018, I lived in Southern California while I was finishing up graduate school. Uber was more popular than ever.
Even my older sister, which doesn't even play at all, is better than him.
However, I only did it for a little while because I'm not really the most patient person, and eventually got tired of people's BS and attitudes. One of the common tactics for customers looking to screw a driver was to cancel their rides in the middle of the trip to avoid paying the fare. They would often say how they did it accidentally and then ask me if I could just finish the trip since we're basically there anyway. This happened to me 3 times. The first 2 times I pulled over and told them to get out of my car, which they complied. Albeit, they called me several names and threatened to kill me. The 3rd time is the subject of this post. It was about 4:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday when I decided to log on and catch some fares. Most people go into the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays and are looking to get rides home between 4 to 5 p.m. to beat the traffic. At this point, I should mention that I was living in San Diego. If you know the area, you know that many people work in the city and live in the outer areas. Chula Vista, Imperial Beach, Escondido, Pacific Beach, because it's cheaper. The day of the event, oh yes, it was an event, lol. I picked up a middle-aged woman who was a student at the local community college downtown. Although she was in community college, I could tell she had money by the way she dressed and where she was going, La Jolla. She gets in my car and starts to make a conversation with me. I'm driving through town, and as I'm about to get on the highway, I hear the cancellation ding. I pull over to a parking lot and let her know that she canceled the ride and I couldn't drive her until she rebooked it. She gave me the was an accident excuse. I told her not a problem and to just rebook the route. Well, at this point, all those people I told you about earlier had just gotten off work and we were in what we call the power hour of maximum surge pricing. La Jolla is like 25 to 40 minutes from downtown San Diego depending on traffic. I looked and the trip would have cost her 70 bucks. She told me she wasn't going to pay that. I said fine and asked that she exit my vehicle. She refused and told me to take her home like I was her chauffeur. At this point I was pissed and wouldn't have done it even if she gave me $100 cash. I didn't really need the money. I asked her politely again. She refused. I had never really gotten to this point before. The other two people were guys, and I would have no qualms about yanking their butts out by force and beating them in the middle of the highway. However, that wouldn't have been a good look in this situation. I thought about going to the police given that we were 3 blocks from the headquarters, but I wanted her to feel the burn. Cue malicious compliance. I asked if she wanted a free ride. She suddenly perked up and said, "I knew you'd come around. You're such a nice guy." I said buckle up and we got on Interstate 5. Here's the part where I tell you that San Diego is 16 miles from the Mexican border. I also keep my passport in my glove compartment because I did volunteer work in Rosarito every so often. We were about 4 minutes into the ride when she asked where we were going. I turned around and told her, "I'm going to Tijuana and I'm glad you could join me. I hope you brought your passport." At first she didn't think I was serious, but by exit 4 she started to panic. I told her she was welcome to get out any time, but she needed to make a decision soon because after we passed exit 1 there was no turning back. I also told her that I wasn't taking her back. Well, she got the message and pleaded for me to pull over. I pulled over and dropped her off at the outlet mall in San Ysidro at the border. Just for giggles, I checked the Uber rate from the mall to La Jolla and the cheapest rate was $87 for a pool ride. I didn't make any money that night, but that was the richest experience I had while being a rideshare driver. I stopped about 1 month later and sold my car. OP, this lady didn't want to pay you, so you escalated to international kidnapping? Hats off, OP. That takes guts. Our next Reddit post is from Vasco. In 2017, I signed a contract for my web shop with our national mail carrier to deliver my parcels. The more parcels, the better rates you get. In my league, they had a 1,000, 2,000, or 5,000 parcel target contract. I went with the 2K one. At the end of year 1, there would be an evaluation, and they said they would be very flexible and reasonable because their priority is to help grow my business. I actually had that in writing. For any parcel I sent through them beyond the 2K target, I'd get a 50% refund of the difference between the 2K and 5K rate. That is, at the 2K rate, it was 3.5 euros per parcel, and for the 5K rate, it was 3 euros per parcel. So they would refund me 25 euro cents back for each parcel above my 2K goal. On the other hand, for each parcel I was short at the end of the year of the 2K target, they would charge me double the difference between the 2K and the 5K rate, on top of a flat rate penalty fee. So basically, 1 euro per parcel I was short in the above example, plus the penalty.
Are we gonna play
the end
this
of year
like,
1 of my contracts is 2 weeks away, and I'm
that.
sitting at 1,850 parcels. Thinking that 92.5% of my target is pretty good for year 1, I gave them a call to talk about the extra charges and the penalty, and see if I could get the 5K rate for the next year as I was seeing and expecting strong growth. In the end, it was their priority to help grow my business, and they were very flexible and reasonable. No, sir, they were dead set on me paying the penalty, charged me extra for the 150 parcels, and on top of that, they would set me back to the more expensive 1K target rate for the next year. I tried to escalate it, but to no avail. So much for helping growing my business and being very flexible and reasonable. In comes the malicious compliance. I did the math, and paying the penalty plus extra charges was nearly double of what it would cost me to reach my target if I would just pay for 150 extra parcels out of my own pocket. I bought 150 bubble wrap envelopes dirt cheap, printed 150 stickers with my own address, put those on each envelope, drove to the mail office, and dropped off 150 empty envelopes. Next morning, the mailman arrives at my door with a grin on his face. He's a cool guy and a stash of envelopes, wondering WTF I'm up to. Later that day, I called to let them know that I'd reached my target and that I would not renew my contract. I signed with a competitor for about the same price per parcel. no strings attached, and did 17,000 parcels in year 2, which amounts to 50,000 euros in business they missed out on. OP, instead of sending yourself 150 letters, what you should have done was send 150 letters to the mail office saying you would like to end your contract. I think that would have gotten the message across much more clearly. Our next Reddit post is from Redonkulous. So, about 2 months ago, my neighbor moved out. Now, we weren't hangout level friends, but we were cordial with each other. We had an agreement that if the other wasn't home when a package came, we'd go grab it and just give it to the other when they got home, as my neighborhood is littered with porch pirates. So, a month ago, a new neighbor moves in. He has a package arrive. He's not home. I grab the package, figuring I'd try to make the same arrangement with him. An hour later or so, he pulls in his driveway, and I come out to meet him with his package. I hand him the package, and I give him a rundown about package thieves in the area. He loses his cool and tells me that, I don't need your effing help. Mind your own business. Leave me the F alone. And storms off into his house. Okay, cool. Fast forward to yesterday. I'm outside doing honeydews. Flowers, yard, blah, blah, blah. Neighbor isn't home. Amazon guy comes and drops off a package on dude's doorstep. Cue malicious compliance. Not 5 minutes after the Amazon guy leaves, here comes a porch pirate, grabs the package, and just starts casually walking back to the sidewalk. Just as the thief makes the sidewalk, the douche pulls into his driveway. The thief takes off running. He gets out of his car and starts screaming at me. I told him, nah dude, I believe you told me you didn't need my help and mind my own business, so that's what I did. The guy gets all pissed and runs into his house. You can hear him breaking stuff. Hilarious. Our next Reddit post is from It's a Phoebe. So this is happening at this moment in time, so the full fallout isn't here yet. My soon-to-be ex-husband filed for divorce after I finally got the balls to move out after he started physically abusing me. No big deal, I was planning on filing anyways. The cast of this story is Matt, who's OP's husband, Jen, OP's attorney, and Steve, OP's husband's attorney. I found a great attorney, Jen, who took my case pro bono. Since we were living together all of 2019 and I moved out in 2020, Jen told Steve she felt that Matt and I should split tax returns 50-50. She also mentioned that since he made significantly more than I did, he should pay $500 to Jen as my attorney fees. Well, my ex did not like this. He called me. Hey, so since I have to pay $500 of your lawyer fees, I'm taking that from your tax return check. That's not how this works. I have nothing to do with her requesting lawyer fees. And even if I did, you'd be forced to pay that $500 back to me when we go to court. Well, we had a deal. No, we didn't. That you talked to your lawyer about the fees, and you didn't. I didn't agree with that. I only agreed to have the tax return and all my stuff before the marriage coming with me. Matt sighs loudly. I can tell that he's getting angry. Look, can I come get my check? I have bills I gotta pay and my work is shut down. Will you leave it under the doormats? No. I will hand it to you when you get here. No thanks. I'd rather not have to see you. Please leave a check for half of the tax return under the doormats. Why do you have to make things so difficult? Just leave me the F alone. And with that, he hung up. Leave him the F alone. Got it. I emailed Jen to make sure it was okay to block his number on my phone. She said as long as he has an email he can use to communicate with me, I could. So I sent, if you need to contact me, please do so with this email and include both attorneys. And then I blocked his number. The thing is, Matt's lawyer, Steve, did not take his case pro bono. So every single time my attorney and his attorney email, half an hour of time gets added to his bill, since the minimum pay is 30 minutes. All because he decided to act like a child. Our next Reddit post is from Angel. My family owned a couple of beach stores on a beach that sold t-shirts, towels, and bikinis. The bikinis were a big seller, and we decided to mark them down for the week from $40 to $25. I put a sign up that showed the sale price, and roughly an hour later, a little kid knocked the sign down. Before I could replace it, a big, sweaty, intimidating gentleman comes up to me and slams his hands on the counter. Yo, my girl wants these 2 bikinis, and you're going to give me a deal or I take my business elsewhere. I was gonna tell him about the sale, but once he demanded a deal and he tried to intimidate me with his size and slamming on the counter, I decided against it. I'll give you 2 for $60. Done. Completed the sale, and as the man was leaving, I put the sale sign back up. Down in the comments, we have this story from Night Ray. I actually went on vacation to Mexico with a couple of friends from college. First adult vacation for us. At the market, we check out tourist t-shirts. Now, at this outdoor market, there were no signs to indicate how much the t-shirts cost. When one of my when one of my friends asked how much, he was quoted something like 240 pesos a shirt. My friend thought for a second and said, "I'll give you 600 pesos for two." The vendor said sold, and the transaction was completed. That vendor made a point to enthusiastically greet us whenever we visited that market for the rest of the week. That was r/malicious compliance, and if you like this video, then hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.
Charlie? Wow, Jennifer Lopez! Did you just attack my village? My village on Coinmaster? Wow, I guess I did. Did you come all the way over here just because I attacked your village? I also came for this. Coinmaster, available on the App Store and Google Play.
r/relationship advice, where OP's husband intentionally breaks her dog's leg. And I have a very special surprise at the end of this video, so make sure you listen to the very end. I, a 23-year-old female, am days away from giving birth, and my 37-year-old boyfriend just decided to tell me that he can't be at the birth because he's married. I'm just in shock right now. Like, I almost feel numb. But I really appreciate everyone here for your help. I was really happy and looking forward to the baby, and I just feel really sad right now. I need to take a breather. Everything is ready for the baby. I'm so excited to meet him. But Jesus. So first off, I know the age gap probably should have been a red flag, but I was stupid. We've been together for 2 years, but he lives in a different city. When I got pregnant, he said he was going to move to my city and we would move in together. He just needed to finalize some things with his ex-wife. He told me he was divorced when we met, and I never had any reason to question it. I knew that he had 2 kids with her as well, and he told me the truth about that. Just not that he wasn't divorced, or even separated. So, fast forward, I'm 39 weeks pregnant, and he suddenly got uncommunicative, which is less than ideal when you're literally about to give birth. Bear in mind that he was supposed to have been fully moved in here about a month ago, but he blamed COVID. Today, I found out I'm going to be induced on Monday unless baby decides to come out over the weekend. So I contacted him and I was like, what's going on? And that's when he told me that he isn't actually separated or divorced. He never told his wife about anything, and now he felt like he was backed into a corner. I don't feel sorry for him for that because that's his own fault. But moved to the country anyway. I told him that he is in fact old and sick. He has complications with his heart and is 64 years old. My brother was laughing at my remark, but John didn't take my comment well and told me to apologize. I was kind of taken aback because, for me, I just stated a fact. I said that there was nothing to apologize to. He repeated that I needed to apologize. I looked at my mom and asked her to defend me. To my surprise, she also said that I should apologize to him. I asked what I did wrong. He started screaming at me to stop being disrespectful and that he's feeding us with the money that he earned and such. I started to cry because it felt like I was in a bad dream, and then he got up and just slapped me across the face. It came out of nowhere, and I was just sitting there, petrified. I guess I waited for my mom to say something, but she didn't, so I just got up and went to my room. I heard my brother screaming at my mom that he hated John. When I was in my room, my brother texted me if I needed comfort or anything, but I told him I'm okay. But I didn't feel okay, and basically cried till I fell asleep. What made the feeling worse was that neither my mom nor John came to my room. Nothing was just nothing. It's early morning now as I'm writing this, and I still feel horrible. I don't want to get out of my room or see anyone. I still feel like I'm in a bad dream. I guess I'm just asking what to do now, and if I was in the wrong, or if my comment was offensive, I don't know. OP, no, you didn't do anything wrong here. Your stepfather definitely crossed the line. So, first things first, that is assault. And assault is a police matter. You need to call the cops and file a report, because what he did is not okay. And if he did it once, he will absolutely capable of doing it again. So it's important to get it documented and show the stepfather that he will not let this go unpunished. Secondly, you said you're 21 years old. I think it's time to start looking at leaving this house. If your father's becoming physically abusive, then the best thing you can do is remove yourself from that situation. I realize you're kind of stuck right now because of the coronavirus, but as soon as the quarantine lifts, you need to start looking at apartments. Our next Reddit post is from Throwaway Dad Lad. So, I'm a big pet lover. We have several dogs, reptiles, frogs, and small animals. I work in the pet care industry, and I've recently lost my job due to the shutdown. That being the case, I've been home a lot more often, and I noticed the animals aren't attached to him like me. I thought nothing of it, as I care for them mainly and had most of them before we got together. Our pets have their own room, and yesterday I went to let our dogs out and our 5-pound Chihuahua mix was limping and putting no weight on his leg. My husband jokingly said a few minutes before I checked on him, "I got Rufus to stop scratching the door." I thought nothing of it until my poor dog was unable to move. I took him to the vet and they did x-rays and let me know Rufus's hip was broken. They said being so small, it could be because he jumped on the furniture and hurt himself, as he's rather old as well. My husband later admitted that he lost his temper, picked Rufus up from the scruff, and beat him. He feels incredibly guilty and wants nothing to do with any of this now. I found out yesterday I'm pregnant, and I'm worried he may lose his temper, or much worse than Rufus's constant scratching. But if I do, I love this man. We've been married half a decade now. OP, there's a lot going on in this post. So the first major red flag is the obvious one. He picked up and beat a 5-pound dog. The second red flag is, in my opinion, even more troubling. After he broke the dog's leg, he made a joke about it. There's a world of difference between having a momentary lapse in judgment and just acting on emotion versus being proud that you beat a defenseless animal. And the third red flag is pretty subtle, but still very important. Based on the way you wrote your post, it sounds like your husband didn't confess this until after you went to the vet, which means your husband is actively trying to avoid responsibility. OP, I know that your life is kind of intermingled with this man, but this is 3 strikes in just one story. In my opinion, you should be looking for next one. Down in the comments, grab the keys as this to share. Been there, done that. If they'll hurt the animals, they'll hurt you. Both me and my kids are now victims of domestic violence, and it's starting with a similar situation. Our next Reddit post is from Throwaway W. Me and my fiancé have been together for 6 years now. I love her dearly. My fiancé has always been huge into drawing in her free time. Frankly, she's really good at what she does. She showed me a bunch of stuff in the past, and if I version of art she's done. I ended up clicking on them and being sent to my fiance's age boundary profile. Now, I'm going to be careful about the words I say on YouTube, so it's up to you to figure out what age boundary stands for. I just kind of shrugged and didn't care. However, in the Google search results, I also noticed a link to an archive of our own story with her username. This got me kind of curious, so I decided to take a peek, expecting it to just be old fanfiction stuff she wrote ages ago. There was a lot of stuff, including recent stuff in her profile. Most of it was, I guess what you would call erotic fanfiction. At this point I found it funny, and when she got home on Friday night, I offhandedly mentioned what happened and how I found it humorous. She got very upset at me, and started acting like I caught her cheating or something. I told her several times that I'm not kink shaming, etc. She told me I violated her privacy and broke our trust. She said that stuff had nothing to do with me, and I had no business snooping. I tried my best to calm her down, but she was visibly upset last night. All of today, she's been very upset, to the point where she said she needed to spend some time at her sister's. I've apologized and told her it was an accident, and I've told her several times that I'm not being judgmental about what she draws. However, she's still very upset. At this point, I'm at a loss for what to do. And then, thankfully, OP posted an update. She came back after I sent a large apology message, apologizing for laughing at her fanfiction, and it was not done out of malice and more out of awkwardness. We had a long talk about it. I explained that I wasn't that comfortable with her keeping such a large amount of her life secret and hidden. She also admitted that oftentimes she was saying she was working late in our home office when she actually meant was she was writing and drawing stuff and just wanted to be left alone. I told her I had no problem with her hobbies, which made her happy. She also told me she's so embarrassed because a bunch of it is self-inserts of her, and some of it would make me unhappy reading it. I asked her to show me, and she eventually agreed. I read some of it, and it didn't bother me at all. In my opinion, to me, fantasizing about fictional characters isn't a huge deal, as it's simply a fantasy and not real. I asked her some of the things she writes about are things that turns her on, and I told her I'm willing to try anything at least once. Yesterday night, she actually sat down next to me and started writing while I was next to her on the couch. And she didn't seem embarrassed at all anymore, so I guess this is good. Thank you for your help. Yeah, I had a feeling when I read the first part that your girlfriend was just super embarrassed that she'd been discovered, but I figured you guys would work it out eventually. Our next Reddit post is from Throwaway So Angry. And this is an update to one of my previous stories that I covered in an earlier r/relationships video. As a quick reminder, OP's entitled sister moved in with her and her boyfriend, and she immediately started pushing boundaries by flirting with OP's boyfriend. I finally decided to talk to my sister yesterday. She was actually sitting in my living room in her underwear and bra, and I completely lost my cool. I told her multiple times to wear some clothes, but she said it was too hot, which it wasn't. She then made a small comment about me being insecure about my boyfriend liking her or something like that, and that made me angry. I sat her down and we talked. I told her she was making me uncomfortable. She was making my boyfriend uncomfortable. She looked very shocked by it. I don't think I've ever talked to her like that. She immediately apologized though. She said she didn't know or some BS, which I wasn't going to fall for this time. I gave her an ultimatum. She needed to pack her stuff and get out in 3 hours. She looked very emotional and she apologized a lot, said sorry a lot, and that she loves me. She said she would never intentionally try to hurt me. If I misunderstood her actions, it wasn't her. She kept saying she didn't know. She said she was just trying to be friendly with my boyfriend, which is not true at all. I asked her if sexually harassing someone was friendly to her, and she started crying. By this time, my boyfriend, who was in our bedroom, avoiding my sister and her skimpy clothing, came out to support me. She kind of pressed her questions towards him. She asked him if she was making him uncomfortable. He said yes, and she cried and apologized. She then tried to gain his sympathy by saying that I was kicking her out when she had no place to go. She also lied that I was always mean to her. She completely ignored me and asked him if she could stay. She had nowhere else to go. Of course, he said no. What the F did she think? I will forever remember the look on her face. So, yeah, she actually refused reason with her, but my mom was just angry at me. She asked me things like, how can you do this to your own sister? And similar BS she should be asking my sister. At that point, I was so effing angry. I was in tears and shaking. I just told her to F off in anger and hung up. It was just a weird day. I'm proud of myself for finally standing up to my sister, but I also don't really feel like getting up from my bed. My boyfriend is back to his cheerful self, and I'm happy about that, but I just feel like such an idiot. I should have realized my mom would never take my side a long time ago. I just don't understand what I did to make my mom so angry at me. Why doesn't she love me? I've done everything she asked me to do, but she never takes my side of things. I just want her to effing love me and support me for once. It just never happens, and I feel like I'm an effing idiot for even trying. I think she regrets I was even born. Anyway, after that, I'm done trying to reason with them. My mom will never believe me. Pretty sure my sister lied to her, so mom keeps calling and trying to speak to my boyfriend. I'm currently thinking of cutting off all of my family. All they do is make me feel like garbage. I deserve better than that. My boyfriend deserves better than that. OP, I don't know why you said don't expect a badass ending, because it's kind of a badass ending. You stood up for both yourself and your boyfriend against your sister who was emotionally manipulating you and kicked her butt to the curb. So good on you, OP, and you need to give yourself a lot more credit. That was r/relationship advice. And recently I've been trying to grow my podcast, and I just came up with a very interesting idea. I'm trying to get people to follow my podcast. And as a way to say thank you to the people who support my podcast, I thought I'd give a shout out. So if you want me to shout you out in the Apple Store or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast and my podcast, then go to the anchor.fm link down in the description and leave me a voice message. To start off, I think I'm going to do shoutouts maybe once or twice a week, but at the moment there's only like 5 voice messages in my inbox, so the odds of you getting picked are actually pretty high. Our first shoutout goes to Shelby. Thanks, Shelby, for helping my podcast grow. I really appreciate it.
Hi, r/. This is me, Shelby Slash. My last name.
I'd you like to play?
Fantastic. You're doing good. You are the best. I love your videos every day. Watch them in the morning before I go to work. I work in customer service, food, and waitress and housekeeping.
Welcome to r/nuclear revenge, where a homeowner literally murders someone to get his revenge. I'm an athletic gay guy, and always have been. I was also born and raised in Texas, so you can imagine some of the goings-on in my younger years when being homosexual was less accepted. This was a little over 10 years ago. Freshman year, I'm on the basketball team. I'm not good, not great, just average. The team also takes up a class period, and some days we have to study instead of practice. One of the kids on my team, M, would constantly give me flack for being gay, calling me the F word, a queer, and all of the usual slurs. I, always being a pretty amiable guy and extremely slow to action, accepted his insults with open arms. Although I wasn't the star player among people who knew me, I made sure my nickname was the F word. I'd answer yes to every, does butt taste good? Or, do you have a body count? I never let it show, but this constant disrespect towards me and other people, including teachers, really got to me. He would harass my friends, pick on the boys, catcall, and make lewd comments to the girls. He was the kind of kid who'd do a fake, yes sir, to a teacher who was getting on to him about something. That's when a little birdie told me his dad died 3 years ago, and his mom was an alcoholic. Despite the fact that I now had this knowledge, I held on to it until I had my chance. M liked to shove people around, but he never did me because I was pretty popular and matched him physically. Like I said, that didn't stop him from picking on people close to me. I started preparing for the fight I knew would come. Working bags, learning footing, all the good stuff. After 3 months of preparation, I felt ready. He came upon me in the bathroom, talked some smack, I don't remember. There were a few of his buddies. Perfect. Remember how I said his dad died? I said, okay, daddy issues. Can I call you that? Is not having one really considered a daddy issue? By the way, why are you so fixated on gay sex? Why do you ask so many questions? Do you want to try it? Or was the last thing your dad did to teach you how to suck blank? Admittedly, not the best as I type it out, but mean enough. This got him enraged. All the better. He charged at me through the narrow part of the bathroom. My back was to the wall and he was moving too fast. I got out of the way and he harmlessly flung himself against the wall. Harmlessly for him and me. Well, not for long. He had to shift his weight. I, to his side, had already done so. It was a one-punch knockout to the side of the jaw. This kid had never been in a real fight before. It only took me raising a middle finger at the 3 friends he brought with him to make them reconsider their dedication to the mission at hand. Next, I kicked him in the face while he was down 4 times. My shoes were smeared with blood. I kicked him in the balls a fair few times after that, spat onto the back of his head, and walked away. I never talked to him again. I never cared how he was doing today, but I'd seen his face, and it certainly wasn't the one he'd been born with. Naturally, word of the fight spread around. I got in some big trouble, suspension, but the motto, "Don't mess with the F word," spread around real quick. As far as I know, nobody ever did. Oh man, you kicked an unconscious dude in the face? That's brutal, OP, but I guess this is nuclear revenge. Our next Reddit post is from PDAS. So, I like to drink with my old man. He has 3 daughters and 1 son. He told this story to me and my little sister. She's only 1 year younger. My oldest sister lived with her mom and stepfather. One day, when she was 12, she called my dad in tears and told about how she was molested by her stepdad. She just wanted to tell someone who would believe her because her mother at the time didn't. My dad was about to get his stuff to beat her stepdad, but my sister told her that she didn't want him to do anything since she didn't want him in jail. So my dad quickly contacted some old friends in gangs and told them that he was furious. My oldest sister's stepdad was beaten so bad he barely recovered. Her stepdad and mom separated not long after. My dad made sure to call his work and tell them everything. Got him fired. My dad made sure to know everything about this man so he could ruin his life as much as possible. When the stepfather got to a new city and my dad got word of it, he made sure he got another extra beating or 2. This went on for years on end. My dad was told a few years ago that the abuser sits in a wheelchair now and he can barely do anything by himself. My dad's still not satisfied. If it were up to him, he would be dead. No one hurts his children. Man, the subreddit makes me feel weird because here I am getting excited and smiling about a story where someone gets beaten within an inch of their life. Our next Reddit post is from Dark 1859. Backstory. This part of the story takes place shortly before 2000. In my state, we have numerous retirement communities that are run by HOAs. The vast majority of them, in my experience as a respite rehabilitation provider, can be summarized simply as here to hold on tyrant and inter-community politics, often targeting members out of their clinic while heavily favoring those who fell in line. In this case, it all started with Richard and the new HOA board. From what details I can remember, Richard had lived in his house in the community under the prior HOA board and lived in his house for close to 10 years. Prior, a community mailbox was installed near his driveway and the borders of his house lined with road edges. These 2 details will be important later. However, around early 2000, a new HOA governing board was elected. By this time, many others had moved into the area and had begun parking in front of the aforementioned mailbox, a number of which, to my memory, were board members. Richard had, at once, tried talking to the offending
Pampers, the #1 pediatrician recommended brand, helps keep baby's skin dry and healthy. So every touch is as comforting as the first. Pampers, the #1 pediatrician recommended brand.
Super, yay!
mailbox blockers that would block his driveway. Eventually, however, he would resort to simply parking his car in front of the driveway and, by extension, the mailboxes. In retaliation, the board would tow his car and invoice Richard for it. In addition to this, Richard was not the type to constantly preen and prune his hedges around his house, or keep the lawn well kept. The HOA, as a result, began to send landscapers to trim them for him, and would naturally invoice him every time they did for the bill. Richard, both verbally and in writing, in rather rude terms, requested they not send them, and denied the landscapers access to his house, but he was still invoiced for their being contract and sent away. Eventually, as I remember, the board would send the landscapers to his home when he was away or not home, and then invoice him the costs after. Finally having enough, to my memory, Richard ended up killing off his lawn and hedges to force the board to stop sending landscapers. But due to laws in my state and the board's bylaws itself, they were able to sue for the cost of the invoices sent out over the course of nearly a year or so, and managed to foreclose on Richard's house for unpaid fees, where he was forced to move out and chose to move to California for a time. The revenge. With the events leading up to the nuclear revenge set in place, now we can discuss Richard's revenge. Richard, to my memory, had been practically living out of a trailer for a little while, stewing over his treatment at the hands of the former board. Richard had still owned a storage unit in Arizona, which contained his rifle and 2 semi-automatic handguns. That April, he returned to Arizona with one goal in mind: revenge. Richard's former HOA held official meetings bi-yearly, with other smaller meetings for emergencies or when voted to convene. Richard entered the board's meeting with his weapons firing and killing 2 board members outright, wounding one more and wounding another during a scuffle with another man trying to wrestle his rifle away from him. When later questioned why he committed the crime, his only response was, "I was getting even." Later, Richard was sentenced to death for the murders, passing of natural causes while still on death row. In the end, as I recall, the HOA was disbanded for some time following the wake of the murders. They have at this point reestablished, but from what I recall, they've been quite careful who they elect to the board. So, hope he posts some links to some news articles, and sure enough, it's completely legit. It turns out he shot one lady in the back and another in the head. Normally I like to crack jokes and even glorify the people in these stories, but not this time. I'll definitely agree that the board kind of screwed this guy over, but my god, this is a completely disproportionate response. This isn't revenge. This is straight up premeditated murder. Our next Reddit post is from Alice Black. This is a long one, but if you stick with it until the end, you'll learn how I was framed and fired from my job, and accidentally set off a chain reaction that led to a staff overhaul with several managers being fired and moved to other restaurants. The general manager being fired and getting a divorce, and one of the managers being investigated by the FBI and ultimately arrested, as well as several of the workers being deported. I used to work at an upscale restaurant owned by a large corporate entity that owns several different restaurant brands. I worked there for about 3.5 years before they eventually fired me, but more about that later. First, I want to give you an idea of my role there. My role at that job was a little of everything. Since the day I started working there, I took it upon myself to learn as much as possible. I was very persistent with management when I wanted to learn a new department. I started as a server, but eventually had worked my way into different departments and job titles like carryout, hosting, bartending, barbacking, banquets, catering, and deliveries. My singular goal while working there was to make myself available for as many hours as possible. I was being paid about $12 an hour, though that fluctuated if I was working as a bartender or server and making tips. Eventually, it was noticed by management how I fit best into one of the non-tipped positions. I was so good at it that they decided to try me out as an unofficial supervisor over the team that worked to carry out catering and deliveries, as those were all one department. I knew this was going to ultimately mean a few less hours since I would only be working one department, so I negotiated with management to increase my pay by about $1.50. Since I was taking on additional responsibilities, they were satisfied with the pay increase. I was trying to get as much money as possible. I just wanted to be able to pay my bills and still have a little money left over for fun. I was living in the highly taxed city of Chicago, which is in the already highly taxed state of Illinois. So it was pretty difficult to make ends meet and still have money left to enjoy my life. I'm a person of simple pleasures, and I can enjoy things for long periods of time, so it didn't take much money to be happy. A video game could hold my attention for several months, sometimes even years. I had a family pet that I brought with me to Chicago, so that counted as an extra expense. Not long after I started this position as the unofficial supervisor, I got a girlfriend, so I was also going out more often and spending money on her. With my position and some smart budgeting, I was able to afford all of this. The money wasn't an issue, but management had a high turnover rate, so the incoming managers often didn't know what the department entailed or how important hours were to workers in these departments. Eventually, it was noted that our current general manager was going to be fired and replaced. The incoming general manager was supposed to be some rock star when it came to improving restaurants. We looked up his name and found him as the first search result on Google. But the entry wasn't some glowing review of his work ethic or of his impeccable ability to improve the way a restaurant runs. It was actually a mugshot and a police report filed for repeated domestic abuse. This is important later. We'll call him Harvey. Shortly after Harvey came in and started making changes, one of our best managers gave her resignation. She refused to work with him, and like an effing oracle, told us to expect lots of sexual harassment, misogynistic comments, and for him to eventually run this place into the ground. Not long after she left, our general manager began replacing our current managers with hand-picked people that he had worked with in the past. Eventually, all but one manager was replaced. That manager was the kitchen manager. We'll call him Frito. Frito had been there since I started working there. He seemed to be somewhat of a chameleon, as in his values and ethics seemed to change depending on who his boss was. Honestly, I sort of applaud his survival instincts, but ultimately see him as a suck-up and trainer. Harvey never really replaced the manager for our department, so we ran without a lot of oversight. Unless you count me as a supervisor, we didn't constantly have someone breathing down our necks about how things should be run. Our department had some hiccups here and there, but it still ran really smoothly. Since we didn't have our own manager, we often had to radio for a manager to come help us out on things that needed a manager card for approval. Frida would always be the one to answer these calls since the kitchen was closest to our apartment. Over time, the new team of managers started to see Frito as the manager of our department as well. However, the hourly team that worked there still saw me as their supervisor. This meant that anytime Frito was trying to make changes that would ultimately hurt us, the team relied on me to mitigate those disasters or to negotiate with Frito to let us do our jobs the way we had already improved working really well. Over several months, Frito and I would butt heads dozens of times. He and I were constantly arguing about how important hours were to the workers in this department. He had it in his head that we should be living off tips like servers. But since most of our orders were carry-out, they came in through Grubhub, and Grubhub doesn't tip. We didn't have a lot of deliveries in a day, and the tips we got from those were maybe $10 if we were lucky. But splitting $10 four ways doesn't add up to a lot. It just showed that Frito had no clue what he was talking about. Eventually, we had a meeting with Harvey, Frito, and all the workers of this department. It was working as a chance to voice all of our grievances and concerns with the changes they wanted to make, no chance of retaliation. So, the workers did exactly that. They talked about how Frito was trying to cut hours even though he isn't our actual manager. When it was brought up the opportunity to hire someone to be the manager, the team suggested that I take over since I'd already been supervising them and running things smoothly for the past several months. I was also the one that management consulted with writing schedules, as I had an understanding of the days some workers could and couldn't work depending on their school schedules or family life. I could see at the moment it was suggested that Harvey and Frito made the decision on the spot that I had to be gotten rid of. Although they didn't say it, I could see the look they gave each other and instinctively knew that my days in this place were numbered, and my job was going to begin to be attacked one way or another. They made a bunch of promises to us about not cutting hours. They told us that they would stop sending all but one person home early and only leaving one person to clean everything and close up by themselves, as this wasn't a small department and it was simply too much for one person to do alone while still meeting health and safety standards. They promised that whatever hours we scheduled for, we would work. We weren't trying to be unreasonable, so we told them that we usually have 3 or 4 people scheduled to work our department. They could cut 2 of them early, but we always needed at least 2 people here to help close properly. The promise was made that we would always have at least 2 closers. However, only about a week later, they started sending all but one person home early again every night. One night, they tried to do it while I was scheduled as the closer, and we had just returned from a massive catering event, and there was an unbelievable amount of cleanup left to do for one person. When Frito came in and tried to send everyone except me home, I stepped up and told him that he was consistently breaking the promise he had made to us during the meeting. He looked me square in the face and told me to stop complaining. And I was going to keep trying to talk to him about him breaking his promises. He could easily find someone who could work my shifts. I quickly realized that this was an assassination attempt on my job. He wanted me to press it further, so I backed off and started leaving. I ended up having to stay way late, and that meant overtime pay anyway. I got a write-up for that, since we weren't allowed to work overtime without a manager's approval. When I refused to sign the write-up, pointing out that I had tried to explain to Frito that I wouldn't be able to clean up all that stuff alone before my scheduled shift ended, I was allowed to leave without signing the write-up, but only because the HR rep that was present at the time wasn't one of Harvey's cronies. Skip ahead to the day I was fired. It's important to note at this point that I always came into work an hour early. Since we lived in Chicago, food was expensive. However, at our job, we were allowed to have as much free soup and bread as we like. So I would come into work 1 hour early every day so I could have some soup and bread for my shift. But on this day, when I walked to the kitchen to get myself some soup, one of the line cooks told me that he had a dish that had been canceled after he cooked it, and Frito had told me to give it to someone. He assured me that Frito had comped it, and that it was free to take for whoever wanted it. It just so happened to be my favorite appetizer, so I happily took the free food. Not long after I got to my booth, both Harvey and Frito approached me and asked me if I had put in a ticket for that food. I told them that the line cook had given it to me, and said it was the canceled order that Frito had already comped. Frito looked dumbfounded and said he had no idea what I was talking about. So Harvey told me, I think you know that's theft. Go ahead and finish the food, and then grab your stuff and go. That's the last meal you'll be having here. I tried to explain to them that I had been given this food by the line cook, but they refused to listen. So I offered to take them to the kitchen to clear it up with the cook. But by the time I got back to the kitchen with him to talk to the line cook, he had already gone home for the day. I had no choice but to gather my stuff, say my goodbyes, and head home. On my way out, I told the people working my department that afternoon what had happened. Exactly as it happened. They were shocked and angry, but mostly sad to see me go. I decided that on my way out, I would stop by the accounting office and pick up any tips that may have been dropped to me that week, just to make sure I didn't get screwed out of that money. I had this gut feeling to just set my phone to record, and I stuffed it into my pocket with the camera rolling. Although the video was entirely black since it was in my pocket, I did manage to get a pretty muffled recording of Harvey and Frito's voices through the door, discussing how things had gone as planned, and that they had been trying to get rid of me ever since that meeting with my department. I knocked on the door, and they hushed up before opening it. They asked what I was still doing there, and I asked for my tips. They gathered what was in the safe for me and handed it over. Despite my anger rising at what I just heard, I decided not to burn this bridge just yet, because perhaps I could effing nuke it later. I offered a handshake to both managers, thanked them for the opportunity to work there, and left, making sure to pull my phone out of my pocket and record the front of the restaurant with the sign showing its name and logo. Working in a restaurant, you learn to always cover your own butt. It's true for most jobs, but something was just telling me I would need this healthier. If I was being accused of theft, I wanted to be able to prove it wasn't true if it ever came up in future job interviews. Which is exactly what happened and where this all started going nuclear. On the train ride home, I sent some messages and made some posts on some local Facebook groups saying that I had just been fired and that I was looking for a job as quickly as possible. By the time I got off at my stop, I had already set up an interview for later that day. I was offered the job about 5 minutes into the interview, but after going over the details, it didn't sound like it was for me, so I turned it down. I interviewed a few other places and found one that was a good fit with a hefty pay increase compared to my previous job, and I wouldn't have to deal with customers. It was an auditing job for a logistics company. However, during the interview with the manager at this job, he mentioned he had already called my previous place of employment and spoken with the general manager, Harvey. Harvey had told him that I had been fired for theft. Luckily for me, the manager I was interviewing with asked me to tell him more about that, and he was willing to let me pull out my phone and find the recording. I asked if the person in the video was the same person he'd spoke with on the phone. It was. That was confirmation enough for him that I hadn't made a fake video. He listened to the two managers in the video, admit that they had set me up, and watched to the end when I showed the front of the restaurant, complete with the logo and name. The manager interviewing me, who we'll call Dean, hired me which listed all of our newest hires, facts about them, and had pictures of them all. They sent these out every time they hired a new round of people. One of them, Thomas, was a former coworker who had worked with me at the restaurant. We had worked at the host stand together, so I was pretty glad to see someone I knew and liked coming onto the team. I sought out his desk and went to say hello and asked why he left the restaurant. He hadn't left willingly. He'd been laid off because the company was under investigation. It had started as a relatively small matter. The corporate entity that owned the restaurant chain had received an email with an attached video. My video that had been filmed from inside my pocket. That was cause enough for corporate to send someone to investigate internally. Thomas was pretty surprised that I hadn't heard anything about it, since there had been numerous attempts to get in touch with me. As soon as he said that, I logged into the old email I'd used when I first applied for the job at the restaurant. I had 24 emails asking me to come in to discuss my employment and termination. I never replied. I just didn't care enough anymore. I'd also changed my number since then, so they hadn't been able to contact me by phone. Thomas continued explaining that before corporate had sent someone, Harvey and Frito had talked with my department and tried to offer them a small pay increase to spin corporate a story about how I was incompetent at my job and failed to live up to my duties. The day the corporate auditor showed up, there had been a small exodus of people from my old department. They quit on the spot in front of the lady from corporate, let's call her Audrey, and made sure to rat out Harvey and Frito before leaving. Strike one for both of them. Strike two came a couple of days after Audrey showed Harvey and Frito the recording that had kicked all of this off. They denied it vehemently, but there was no mistaking Harvey's voice. It's unique. Not only that, but the video also picked up their voice and mine when we shook hands and had a friendly parting of the ways, which was something they'd already bragged about to Audrey, thinking it made them look better that we were able to part on good terms. This wasn't the actual strike two. That came when it was clear they needed to be separated, so Audrey sent Frito to work in another restaurant owned by our company and temporarily demoted Harvey to manager. This tore them apart. They had once been an inseparable evil team, but the pressure of the investigation must have pushed them over the edge. They ended up at each other's throats on Facebook, on a public post on the company page. The post had since been deleted, but Thomas explained it as the following. Frito had been pictured in the Facebook post on the restaurant page, and Harvey made a passive-aggressive comment about how Frito shouldn't even be in the picture since he had moved to another restaurant due to misconduct. Frito saw this comment and said something along the lines of, "At least when people Google my name, I don't show up as the guy that punched his wife." To which Harvey responded, "Very funny from the guy who was cheating on his wife with Janet's sister." Janet's not a real name, but Janet was the girl they appointed to officially supervise my old department after they fired me, the unofficial supervisor. Frito replies to that by saying, "Like you haven't tried with half the waitresses. They all have stories about you trying to passionately hug them." The post was deleted, but not before it had been seen by Audrey the auditor. That was officially strike two. Strike three came the next day when Audrey started interviewing the female waitstaff and bartenders, seeing if any of them could confirm that Harvey had tried to make a move on them. All of them were interviewed separately. Several of them had similar stories. Every girl that confirmed Harvey had made a move on them all said he had offered to be their sugar daddy if they would send nudes or stay after closing to fool around with them. Harvey was fired. But that isn't the worst of it. Audrey the auditor wasn't just a random woman from corporate. She was the old regional manager for this area and had personally hired Harvey's wife as the general manager of another restaurant in the city. So she called up the restaurant Harvey's wife worked at and told Harvey's wife everything she learned from the female waitstaff. We learned later that they had gotten a divorce over him trying to cheat on her after she had already given him a second chance to change after he beat her. I don't know what compelled her to give him a second chance after something like that, but she sure didn't give him a third. After firing Harvey, the line cook who had given me the food was interviewed by Audrey. I don't know how it came up, but at some point, he had let it slip that he was an illegal immigrant. She had his file in her hand with an Illinois ID and social security number on file, so this confused her and she pressed him for more information. It turns out that Frito had some connections and had his own miniature black market going on where he would have fake social security cards and IDs made for the illegal immigrants he was hiring at reduced wages. It had been going on for at least 4 years. Needless to say, this is a felony. With the potential PR nightmare that Audrey was likely dealing with, she felt she had no choice but to alert the authorities. Local PD enlisted the help of the FBI since some of the evidence led them beyond the jurisdiction of the local police. Frito was arrested and quickly gave up the names of the people working that he had sold social security cards and IDs to. I'm not sure if he gave up all of them, but he did name drop about 14 people, and of those 14, at least half were deported by the time Thomas had been let go. One of them was the biker that had given me the food the day I was fired. Thomas went on to explain that it had all started with me being fired, but I never sent that recording to corporate. I'd only sent it to Dean when he hired me. I asked him about it, and he told me that he had sent it to his wife since she was a lawyer. He wanted to see if I had a case to maybe sue my old job since what they had done was wrong. But he also remembered that when we had first talked about it, I'd said that I'm not the type of person who would try to make millions off an entire company because of the mistakes of two buttholes. But I had also said that it would be pretty sweet to see them lose their jobs too. So his wife had been the one that sent the video to the legal team at the corporate headquarters of my old restaurant job. My boss and his wife were both just trying to get two scumbags fired for what they did to me, but ended up pulling a thread so long that it didn't end until there were sexual harassment accusations. Allegations about managers cheating on their wives with girls related to people they had placed in positions of authority, a divorce, mass layoffs pending investigations, a staff overhaul, an FBI investigation into what could be considered black market dealing with falsified government-issued documents, and at least a half dozen deportations, and probably as many as 14. I don't know if this counts as nuclear revenge, as I didn't actively pursue it, but bonus ended up showing me that even if it wasn't revenge, it was definitely nuclear, and the crater it had left was massive. Yeah, nuclear revenge doesn't exactly apply. I think it's better to call this something like nuclear karma. That was r/nuclear revenge, and if you like this video, then hit that subscribe button because I put out Reddit videos every day.
I'm not talking, guys. I'm just trying to get these wins with my buddy over here.
Calls and text to connect with friends and family wherever you are. And whether they're minutes or miles away, we've got you covered with unlimited free calls to the USA and Canada, and with our low international rates to reach countries across the globe. TextNow makes it easy. Download TextNow and join the 60 million people who've already found a better way to talk and text. Questioning right now. Questioning, is now a good time for us to invest? Should I refinance my house? Do twins mean twice the insurance? How can I get my credit score to go up? Can I afford to do this? Can I afford not to? Are there credit card perks for pizza? To all those simply questioning, where do I go with all these questions? We got your back. For all your money questions, turn to the nerds.
Welcome to r/pro revenge, where a teacher gets revenge against his terrible students. The backstory. The year this happened, I taught a high school class for grades 9 to 12. That's 14 to 18-year-olds for you overseas guests. My class wasn't necessary to graduate, but it did count as a core requirement. One of my beginning of the year rules was I never want to hear, I only ever need this, because you didn't have to sign up for this class. How I structure my class is that I try to make students accountable for their own actions. My class was built so that it had something to offer everybody. If you tried your best, you were guaranteed a C. If you worked really hard, you could get a B or an A. I would bust my butt to help a student with any reasonable request. The best example of this was a student was working hard on an assignment and said, I think I understand it now, but can't turn it in on time. To which I answered, then turn it in tomorrow for full credit. This is how hard work pays off. Other than a few hard deadlines in my class, I would do whatever it took to see you learn the material. So around in my class, I've already found ways to run circles around the pathetic excuses you throw at your parents for your piss or performance. It sounds callous, but I was the teacher who would stay for 90 minutes after school to help you catch up, to help finish a project for another class, or even to listen to you cry about your parents' divorce. class instead of doing your work, my rule was that at least 70% of class time was intended for homework, quizzes, etc. I would warn you a couple times, email your parents, and then wait and see if they even gave a lip. If they didn't, I would let you keep digging that hole until you were hip deep in water and begging for a ladder. And then I would toss you a rope instead. You could still climb it if you tried hard enough, but a lot of kids would just cry until they caved in and buried. I also utilized my school's online grading and assignment system for nearly all of my assignments, which meant I could document when a student looked at the assignment, how long it took them, etc. All of this allowed me to see what my students were doing, when they did it, and also if they were plagiarizing. This was also one of the tools that helped me make important decisions about leniency, and also to say things at conferences such as, of course the test was hard. Your child didn't attempt the 9 homework assignments until 11 p.m. the night before the test. Being able to prove that a student wasn't trying made it impossible for blames to be laid unfairly at my feet. It also meant the worst kids avoided my class. Bonus. However, this year, something magical happened. Every other year, I would kids who just wanted to screw around and blame everyone else for doing poorly. At the end of the year, students would trash talk me, my classmates would drop the following year, receive high praise from those kids, so everything so on and so on. But this year, not only did I get a giant wave of knuckleheads, but they came with parents who love to make trouble. I'd already heard tales of some of these parents. Other teachers were just dying to hear stories about our interactions because these parents were very much entitled. They would name drop lawyers when they didn't get their way, try to badger teachers into giving their kids extra credit, and would largely deny any wrongdoing on their kids' part. These were the parents who would get called in because their student was busted cheating, then accuse the teacher of making the class too hard, and validating their students' need to cheat. So, about these knuckleheads, it was a group of roughly 7 senior boys who all shifted their schedules to be in the same period with each other. The other teachers couldn't believe that I had all of them at the same time, but I just shrugged it off. Every week, the staff lounge was dying to know how I dealt with their shenanigans, but for the most part, I had shut down most of their garbage from day one. I actually got along very well with them, despite their constant goofing, because they had mastered the ability to appear busy and did distract my other kids. Then came the first group project. My class size was just right for 7 groups of 4 to form. The idiot collective formed 2 groups of 4 by pulling in a kid who had been absent on the first day of the project. These 2 groups crashed and burned on this project super hard for several reasons. But the biggest were that A, they screwed around during class time, and B, put off a 2-week assignment until the weekend before, and then dumped all the work on everybody else, which resulted in everybody doing minimal effort. I handed out the terrible grades and was immediately pulled into parent conferences with several of them. One at a time, obviously. Every meeting was the same. My kid did all the work, so he doesn't deserve a bad grade. Or, my kid didn't understand the assignment. To which I handed over my hyper-specific rubric, which is a checklist for how I grade things. I never wanted to be accused of grading based on not liking a kid. These largely went like this. My kid did all the work, and I don't think it's fair you should hurt his grade. Here's the work your student turned in. I handed over. Here's my rubric, which I printed and emailed to your student the day the project started. I hand that over. As you can see, I have itemized the grading for ease of use. I would be happy to go over the grade your student earned. Where are the missing parts? And the student says, my group members were responsible for that. I can't grade what I never received, so I can't reasonably just raise your kid's grade. Sorry. Now, good news for all my students. I make assignments for throughout the semester with the idea that kids who screw up early on can make it up later by working hard. I see extra credit throughout the semester, and all these parents are disgruntled. But happy to hear that their entitled embryo can still get an A in my class. Now, the end result of these meetings was that it clearly wasn't my fault. Remember, I had all this data to prove that I made every effort to contact everybody, etc. So it must be the other kid's fault. So these parents all decided that their abilities no longer allowed to work with their previous group.
Shirley?
Wow, Jennifer Lopez.
Did you just attack my village? My village on Point Master?
Wow, I guess I did.
Cool.
the way over here just because I attacked your village? I also came for this. Coin Master, available on the App Store and Google Play.
Like a cancer, this failure of friends distributes throughout the rest of the class. Like the genius that I am, I make my students write a group contract for every project that details who does what and when it's due. Why is this important? Because the contract provides me with documentation necessary to allow me to dismiss a bad group member and give them a 0 without their parents dumping all over my day. So here's where the problem begins manifesting. These seniors begin bouncing from group to group like cancerous pinballs, wreaking havoc. I let students choose their groups, so these seniors are desperately integrating with anybody that'll have them. Because of my class size, every group has at least one coddle child to deal with, and these children just end up rotating until all my students have worked with one of these seniors at some point. Now I'm getting constant complaints from parents of the other kids about these boys. Their kids wanted a good grade, which means they ended up doing all the work while the seniors slacked. This is usually after the fact, at which time I bring up, I would love to yank that leech out of your grade pool, but you have to use the contract. Students don't want to say anything because they fear retribution from the seniors, but I can't do anything because I'll be accused of harassment. The contract can provide me with the leverage I need to prove that these kids were doing no work, because seniors have been playing their parents for years. I make my class utilize Google Docs because the changes are time-stamped. No joke, I've had students produce all the work the morning of a parent meeting to try and lie their way out and make me look like a piece of garbage. But that timestamp is a godsend. Luckily, my class is balanced. A sucky groupmate can make things hard, but not undoable, and parents are appeased that I have enough for their kid, but disappointed that their kid doesn't use it. Every time I announce a group project is on the way, some of these seniors sucker up to the other kids that's expected that a spot will be. I'm talking buying kids lunch, bringing them gifts, etc. Seriously, the day before group project starts, all the seniors have to sit at separate tables from each other so they can be in a group car. The strain on class morale, but I'm biding my time. The other students are grabbing extra credit opportunities constantly so that their grade comes over the low, and parents' complaints are completely mitigated because I'm still offering every chance for success. My principal has a copy of my syllabus in his computer so he can quote student policies that the parents signed off on. It's not uncommon for him to hear, "I don't read that, so it doesn't apply." But he reminds them that the clause above the signature line says, "My signature denotes that I have read this document in its entirety and agree to abide by all the rules," or something similar. This should be a lesson to the parents that when you sign something, you should read the fine print. The setup. I have six awful seniors, but I shall name the worst of these Larry, Curly, and Mo. The fallout affects all of them, but these three are the ones whose parents have a boner for making trouble. Every time they bully a teacher into compliance, I imagine they sit around the smoking room with cigars and cognac, laughing at how they got their way yet again with a lowly teacher. I know that anything I do will be heavily scrutinized once the grades start falling, and I need to be able to shrug it off because I have other stuff to do. And I refuse to be the smiling topic of discussion in their celebratory circle jerk. However, a special note about Larry. Since he turned 18, his parents now travel non-stop and are impossible to reach. Larry is just a huge douche because his parents no longer care about what he does. I closely monitor their grades in my class, but also in others. This may sound sketchy, but I routinely do this with any of my students who struggle with the material so that I can identify if the issue is my class or all of their classes. Students have been known to fake their grades using inspect element, and I got tired of hearing, but they have A's in their other classes, because then I look like a piece of garbage. Anyway, after a chat, I speak with the other teachers. It isn't hard to find out that these boys are doing minimal work in other classes, and I actually discovered that Larry has been finding ways to get other kids to do work for him, and then disseminating it among his friends. Other teachers have been bullied into lowering test percentages in their class, and guess what? He and his friends are enrolled in these classes.